here, and we cannot be silenced ever again. If you feel any way shackles, you have the power to remove your own shackles. You don't need to wait for someone to take your shackles off. There are no shackles. They were given to us from the outside. But we know that we live from the inside, that we are connected with that life that is living us, that aspect that has incarnated us, and that it is our charge right now, on this day, at this particular time, to step into it and never to step out again. Because the world is on an overload of masculine energy. That's not just man, woman, that's an energetic that we've all taken on because it's what's called us. That's the intellectual parts of ourselves, the organized parts of ourselves, the more assertive parts of ourselves. Those are good parts, we need them. Mm-hmm. But somehow we've set aside the compassion, the mothering, the nurturance. When you look into these children's eyes, your heart melts. Mm-hmm. Let your heart melt when you look into anyone else's eyes. Mm-hmm. Because that innocence and that love and that sweetness and that beauty that we see here in these children exists in all of us. Sometimes it's gotten covered up because we live in the hardness of the world. But if we can see it in each other, it ignites it, it palpitates, and we can bring it out. That is our charge, to live in the compassion of our hearts, to live in the trusting and the knowing of who and what and why we are. The elements have activated to call us to compassion. Are we listening? Are we paying attention? Every element, fire, earthquake, hurricane, flood, the elements rose up all at the same time to say, come to compassion, love each other. Mm-hmm. Are we listening? Are we continuing to listen? Because often what happens with us is some disaster, some catastrophe, something happens with someone, some community, and we go into our heart, and then we go right back to the life that we were living and the hardness and the covering up that we've had. We can no longer be there. Mm-hmm. No longer. It is not acceptable. So that person that gets on your nerves, mm-hmm. You can realize somebody's getting on your nerves, and then you can go, what's my part in it, number one? Because it's never just another person. Mm-hmm. That's what I love about the teaching of Ho'oponopono. Mm-hmm. It's take responsibility for the part that you play in whatever it is that you're seeing. Mm-hmm. That's what we're being asked to do. We have a part to play. Mm-hmm. What Morris described and what he sees in the women, are we demonstrating that? Are we being that? Because the world, that's my book, the world is missing its muse. We're the motivation and the inspiration for the children, the men, and each other. If we're not present, who's to motivate and inspire? If we're standing in judgment, who's to love? Who's to give? It's on each of us. And if no other woman stepped forward, and we're stepping forward everywhere, then these women right here in this space, we have the ability, just us, in a collective consciousness, to change the world by changing our own world, individually, within ourselves. That is what we are here to do. That is what we are being asked to do. We've come here for that purpose. We've come here in this space for that purpose. We've come here on the earth plane for that purpose. I remember we talked about Marianne Williamson 8 or 9 years ago. I went to a conference where she said, it has never been more important to be human than it is right now, today. Because the world can perish if we don't step in to love. No matter what. No matter how upsetting something may seem, no matter how much it may look like it's not the way it is intended to be, this is not your life. This is a life of the very presence that is living itself through you. Every desire that you have is an idea that it dropped into you, that you've caught and you call your desire. That's good. Then we get an idea about a big picture, and we can't step into it because we feel overwhelmed by it. All we're ever asked to do is to take a step. So the step I'm asking you to move into today is simply to love unconditionally. We've talked about it. We've talked about mother energy that's called that in. We can step into unconditional love no matter what. Mm-hmm. Stop. We've been working with the breath. Stop. Take a breath. Recognize, rather than being reactionary. We react because we live in a world that calls for us to be reactionary. But we have to let that, we can step over here and leave that world out there. We don't have to try to change that world. We have to try to change this world. That's all we have to do. This world inside of ourselves. I'm going to tell this story just because it's coming to me right now. I was recently, a couple of weeks ago, I was called the N-word in Los Angeles, simply because I was driving my car the way my car needed to be driven. I was coming out of a parking lot at a light, and there was a dip down to get out into the intersection. And my car is low, so I had to drive slowly to get out into the intersection. And someone was in a hurry behind me in an SUV, and he was blowing his horn, blowing his horn, blowing his horn, trying to drive around me, which was impossible. When we turned the corner, we were in two separate lanes, and he said, F you, N-word. But what was so beautiful about the experience for me is it didn't connect with anything inside of me. And that's what we're being asked to do. Let go of those connectors. Mm-hmm. Heal those things that, where our wounds were from the past, we're stepping into something new and different. We're healing our wounds. We're healing our wounds in this Jamaica sun with this amazing food, in this wonderful water, here in the collective of these beautiful women and beautiful men and children. Mm-hmm. There's so much available to us right here, right now. And so I'm asking that we step in and ask our prayer to keep us in our heart space, to remember that we are the nurturers, that we all have a womb. Whether we birthed the child or not, it matters not, because we all are mother energy. We are what the earth is to the world. It comes from us, right in here. Whether the womb is physically there or not, that energetic mothering, that nurturance, that presence that we are, is right here within us. Mm-hmm. I'm calling forth your collective and individualized remembrance of who and what and why we are, because you are important. You are so important right now on the earth, because it's gone mad. It's breaking open. I love the word, Reverend Michael. It's a word actually that's new, relatively new in the English language. It actually wasn't made up by him. But the word chaotic. We are seeing chaos, but out of chaos comes order. It's breaking up to be placed in a new way, and it's asking you to see and know that. So the pissosity that you may have toward President Donald Trump, because he is the President of the United States of America, he incarnated in a very difficult position in order to assist this change. That is the truth. We can demonize him if we want to, but he incarnated for this reason, to assist this change, because look at how he is bringing people together into compassion. So when we see it happening in the human form and in the elements, it's happening at the same time, God is speaking to us. Are we listening? Ashe.
Ashe.